there's a lot on the line here in the first round of the playoff. And while we are supposed to treat each individual season as if it has a life of its own, it's impossible when we evaluate these teams. It's impossible to not to have a little bit of preconceived bias based on what that team or league has accomplished in the past. And this year is a unique season. You have in the first round, you have Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, all playing in the first round out of the Big Ten. Two of the three are hosting, and Indiana will go to Notre Dame. They're in-state, I guess you could call them rival, but they haven't played in 33 years. But there's a lot on the line for the Big Ten. They now have multiple home games. They're in a really good spot, healthy favorite in the games that they're involved in, with the exception of Indiana. But things look pretty good for the Big Ten. Everyone already has so much respect for the Big Ten. There's no denying that. But I do think when you look at the ACC, this year the ACC got two teams in. And I get it. I can be on board with that. I understand it very much. I don't push back on what the committee decided to do. But the ACC has two teams in. In the event in which Texas wins convincingly and Penn State wins convincingly against Clemson and SMU respectively, how will that affect the ACC moving forward as far as being given the benefit of the doubt? I think it's something worth watching and something worth evaluating. And then you think, too, about these teams that are hosting home playoff games. This is the ultimate prize with this structure. I think the home playoff environment is the best part of what we have in the 12-team playoff. I love it. I can't wait to be at one of these bowl sites. I can't wait to be calling one of these games. It's going to be incredible. I don't know which one just yet. Well, I do. I just can't announce which one just yet. But stick with us here at Always College Football. You will find out at some point. I can't wait to be there. But I know this. There are a couple teams that are playing at home that are going to have a really, really, really stressful game in the event in which they don't get off to a very good start. I think about Ohio State and some of the challenges that Ohio State are currently dealing with as far as the morale in their fan base and amongst their supporters. Understandable. They just lost to Michigan for the fourth time in a row. I get it. I don't think anyone needs to tell Ohio State fans how to feel. They feel how they want to feel. We support them regardless of how they're feeling. But in the event in which Tennessee goes down, scores on the first possession, Ohio State goes 3 and out, think about how uncomfortable it's likely going to be in the horseshoe for the Ohio State players, and more specifically, the Ohio State coaches. What about with Penn State? They go and they play really well, by the way, in the Big Ten championship game. They make a couple mistakes. Defense doesn't play quite as well as you would hope. But there they are. They're sitting there playing against a team in SMU that I think most Penn State fans anticipate beating. Most Penn State fans anticipate winning that game going away, I would imagine, just watching how Clemson was able to handle SMU at times along the line of scrimmage. So I think Penn State fans are probably feeling pretty confident with the Ponies coming to town. Well, what if some of the big plays that Oregon was able to create, what if SMU can create those same big plays? And then the notion and the pressure goes all the way back on Penn State. And man, how is this SMU team running with us? How is this SMU team being able to score and move it up and down the field? It's going to be a lot of pressure on James Franklin and his staff to go out there and perform at a really high level. And what about Notre Dame? Notre Dame, they are playing against Indiana. It's an in-state school. I don't think Notre Dame and Indiana are necessarily going toe-to-toe on a bunch of recruits. It's not like there's bad blood amongst the two programs. They don't play very often, but I do know this: Indiana hasn't won in Notre Dame Stadium since 1898. So it's been a while since they were able to pull off that remarkable feat. But the long question about Notre Dame has been, can they do it in the playoffs? We've seen them do it in the regular season. We've seen them get to the playoff, but we have yet to see them be super competitive in the playoff. Well, what if Indiana comes out, executes like gangbusters like they have at times this season, and starts to move up and down the field, and then that vaunted three-headed rushing attack with the two outstanding running backs and the quarterback, what if that great run defense of Indiana kind of contains Riley Leonard and company? What if Jeremiah Love can't break free? Think about the pressure that could be felt on the sideline if, for whatever reason, the advantage that Notre Dame thinks they might have in the trenches isn't there. So there's a lot to prove for a lot of these schools. And I didn't mention Texas, but I think Texas, they're riding pretty high right now, right? They're riding pretty high. Steve Sarkisian can do no wrong in the eyes of the Longhorn faithful. But the other three situations, Penn State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, there have been times in which the fans have been somewhat frustrated with the performance of their team, not just this year, but at other times throughout their coach's tenure.